In this video, I'm going to be reviewing these two dummies from Suples.com. So I'm reviewing these two dummies specifically because they're pretty representative of the full range of options that you are offered by Suples. This one is a full-size leather dummy with legs. I've had this one for about 6 years, 7 years now. And this one is a lighter speed dummy. It's in vinyl and it has a stump instead of legs. So we're going to go through the pros and cons of each one of these options and which one ultimately I would recommend for the majority of people and why. So we're going to look specifically at the range of options that you have in terms of their size and weight, in terms of the material that they're made of, and in terms of whether or not they have legs or a stump. I'm also going to look at their overall build quality and their durability. And finally, I'm going to look at their usefulness for Jiu Jitsu athletes and students. So when you go to Suples.com, you're going to have a couple of different options, and let me just go over those really quickly. So there's essentially two types of full-size dummies. You've got the speed dummy, which is always going to be lighter for its height, and then you have the more traditional dummy. For the speed dummies, they only come in vinyl. For the more traditional dummies, you can get them, the full weight dummies, you can get them either in vinyl or in leather. The other option that you're going to have is whether you want a dummy that has legs or a dummy that has a stump. Okay, so all of those options are going to depend on what you want out of your dummy. And so let's just go over a little bit of what the speed dummy has to offer and what it's intended to do. So the speed dummies are essentially, as their name would indicate, they're intended to be a little bit lighter so you can work a little bit faster with them. And so you can throw over and over and over again. You're going to get tired, but you're just not going to get as tired as quickly because you're not using as much power and explosiveness. Okay, so I would say that if you're interested in learning and working on your fundamental technique without having to worry about like muscling or powering things through in your technique, the speed dummy is going to be for you. I'd also say that the speed dummy is more appropriate for kids, okay, because it's lighter and the kids really should be working on their technique anyway. So they have different sizes, different heights of dummies and they have recommendations about what what the user should be in terms of their height and weight. So you're going to have a pretty good idea. I found that they're pretty accurate in their recommendations. So we looked at the speed dummy, and now I wanted to look at the more traditional dummy that Suples sells on their website. Now this dummy is awesome. This is actually the first dummy that I ever bought, and it's, again, the build quality on these is excellent. I've had this dummy now for 6 or 7 years. It's essentially, with one minor exception, as good as when I got it. There's no, the seams are all intact. There's no significant or even insignificant kind of tearing or any kind of abrasions on the fabric of the dummy. The only thing, there's no stitching that's coming out. I don't know if you guys can see that on the video, probably not. There's like stitches here where they stuff the dummy. No stuffing's coming out. The arms are not falling off like you'll see with a lot of other dummies. This dummy, super well built, super high build construction. It's heavier. So this dummy is 65 pounds. It's the second heaviest dummy that you can buy that I saw on their website. And so that 65 pounds may not sound like a lot, but when you're throwing it over and over again, because it's dead weight, that adds up. Okay, so this is much more for developing your more explosive power. You're not going to be, it's like lifting weights, right? Like you can lift a light weight a lot. When you get to the heavier weights, almost by definition, you're gonna lift those weights a lot less. So he's 65, the other one's like 35. He's probably about twice as heavy. You're going to be able to do half as much with him in terms of throwing, right? Or you're going to have to work twice as hard, if you will. They make these in a stump version. So if you really want the leather, which is a little more expensive, and you don't mind not having legs on it, then you can get that too. So it's really about what you want to do with the dummy. If you really want a dummy that's heavy, so you get a more of a strength workout with it, or work more on your explosiveness, this is more the dummy for you. But I would just urge you to be careful. Don't get too big of a dummy. They give you guidelines on the website about what weight is appropriate for your weight, but I would encourage you to encourage most people to go to the lighter weights. The only trade-off with that is as the dummies get lighter, they also get shorter. So they tell you on the website like how tall the dummy is, how much it weighs, and what they think is the appropriate weight for the person throwing the dummy. Okay, so this dummy I wouldn't get for a kid. Okay, they come in smaller sizes, and I guess as kids get older and stronger, it becomes more and more appropriate for them. But I wouldn't, if I have an 8-year-old, I would not get this dummy for a small or young child. Okay, because this is too heavy. This is probably too heavy for anyone who isn't already good at throwing a dummy. Okay, or throwing a real person. Okay, so if you're just starting out developing your throwing skills and you want something that you can work on in your home or whatever, this dummy probably is not appropriate. I would definitely go for the speed dummy. If you have more experience and you're comfortable throwing real people and you're not worried about your form or your technique, this is the dummy for you, okay? This dummy also, because it has legs, you can do single leg. We can't do some, so you can do some form of single leg, but you can't do, you can do double legs, you can do high crotches, you can do, more traditional osotogaris. You can do ouchis. They're not as dynamic because it's just the way these legs work. They're not articulated legs, they're just kind of stumpy legs. So this dummy is wonderful for really developing power and explosiveness, but I wouldn't say it's good for people who are just starting out. Okay. The other thing I want to show you is that he's got this harness. Now I don't know if you can see the legs. So this is the shoulder part of the harness right here. These two blue straps. And if I bring it back, you'll see there's the two straps here. Now, he's not just doing like a weird Borat impression. There's a purpose for that. What you do is there's this strap in the back, kind of crisscrosses like this, and then there is a ring that you can use. What you do with the harness is there's this metal ring, and if you have a carabiner or some sort of hook, you can attach this to like a bungee cord or like a rope or something. You attach it to like a pull-up bar or something else that's really stable. And then that way what you can do is you can practice doing like uchikomis or shots, but you don't have to reset him. Okay, so the other kind of thing about this guy or any dummy that has legs is that when you pick them up, you kind of have to rebalance them every time on their two legs, which you don't have to do on the speed dummy. Okay, that's why they call it a speed dummy, is that you can go faster with it. So this guy is heavier, he's bigger, takes more power and explosiveness to throw. It also takes a lot more to pick him up and rebalance him. So this isn't a guy that, not to say that you can't, work both your power and explosiveness as well as your speed, but it's going to be a lot more effort to work with this guy. So let's talk a little bit about build quality. I've owned both of these dummies now for over 5 years. I've used them personally and in the academy for that entire time period on an almost daily basis. We use them for throwing, for drilling. We use them for demonstration and for teaching purposes. These dummies get used every day. They've absorbed a lot of punishment over the years. The kids love to punch and kick and climb on top of them. And so what I can say is after all that time, these dummies have proven to be exceptionally durable. Neither one of them has any rips or tears. None of the seams or stitching have come loose or show any sign of coming loose or ripping or coming apart. All the limbs, the arms, and the heads are still attached, and neither one of these have shown any signs of coming apart, either at the arms, at the shoulders. The legs are still on totally. The neck, there's not much neck here, but everything is essentially what it looked like when it came out of the bag when I ordered it or when I received it from Suples.com over 5 years ago. So there's one big caveat. Both the vinyl speed dummies that I've had and the leather dummy that I have, if they have legs, what happens over time is that the legs generally tend to buckle. Okay, so this it doesn't matter if you get the speed dummy or the regular size dummy. If it has legs and you keep it stored upright, like against a wall, for example, over time it has a tendency to buckle. All right, I'm going to try to show that to you for a second. All right, so what I wanted to show you when I talk about buckling, what I'm saying is the leg is bent over, and so when I just hold it just upright like this, you know, the dummies tend to buckle right here, not at the waist. This is kind of the dummy's waist, right? But they bend here, okay? So now it's not completely buckled. This still stands upright. Like I put it up on a platform here, and I've just kind of raised it up a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about. But essentially, you know, what you're losing is like 2 or 3 inches off the height of the dummy. And in order to do any kind of throws like seonages or arm spins where you have to get underneath the shoulder, you either have to lift the dummy up a little bit, or you have to lower your level so that you can get your arm underneath his shoulder or his armpit. Right, from this distance you can see how the dummy slouches. You see, he kind of bends right here. So the weight of the dummy will force this to kind of bend forward. So when he's kind of slouched forward, which actually is more realistic from a jiu-jitsu perspective, because when guys are doing stand-up in jiu-jitsu, they take a more, you know, bent over or hunched stance than most judo players would. But they're not as hunched as maybe a wrestler would be. So like I said, if you're gonna get one of the dummies with the legs, I think probably, regardless of the material or the weight, the buckling at the legs is probably inevitable over a long period of time. But you know, part of that is our fault in the sense of, you know, we stored these dummies very often standing up against a wall, and so that's gonna kind of encourage it to put a lot of weight in its legs and make that kind of buckle quicker. So I think there's an easy fix to kind of delay that inevitability, which is just, you know, storing the dummy on its back on the floor when you're not using it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how useful these dummies are for jiu-jitsu students and athletes. So these dummies are primarily intended for judo and wrestling takedowns and throws. I also want to note right now that I put gis on these dummies, but they don't come with gis. So if you want to put a gi on your dummy, you're going to have to get a gi, and I would suggest getting one that's a little bit bigger than what you think you would normally fit on one of these dummies. So, you know, I would normally say that this dummy would take an A2. But in reality, because of the way the arms are configured, or the shoulders rather, it's hard to get the gis on. So you have to get a little bit bigger. So these are like A3s and A4 gis, even though that I think that an A2 would probably fit on a person this size. So because these dummies are specifically designed and intended for takedowns and throws, they're perfect for that purpose. Perfect. If you're a jiu-jitsu or any other type of athlete or student who's interested in developing your technique for stand-up throws and takedowns, these are absolutely, whichever model you get, are some of the best dummies on the market right now for that purpose. And this is particularly true in jiu-jitsu. A lot of schools don't really focus on stand-up and takedown. I mean, this is a sport where you can come out and just sit down and spend the whole match on your butt playing guard. So if you are interested in developing your stand-up skills and you're at a jiu-jitsu school, you're probably not going to be able to find that many people who are willing to take hundreds or thousands of throws over the course of a night or a week or a month. And so these dummies are perfect for that type of drilling. You know, and regardless of which dummy you purchase, whether it has the legs or the stump, you can practice all your upper body takedowns. You know, all of the, you can do seonages, you can do arm spins, you can do osotogaris. If you want to do more wrestling-based takedowns, you want to do double legs, you want to do high crotches, I would definitely recommend getting a dummy with legs. It also is helpful to have the legs if you're doing osotogaris. And, you know, just to sum up, look, I think I've used these dummies for a long time now, and I think they are essentially the perfect training partner for jiu-jitsu athletes and students who want to work on their takedowns, because really, you know, while they're not 100% realistic, they're not in terms of like a human person, You know, these dummies have a lot of advantages. They're always available. They're never going to ask for a turn. They're never going to get sick. They're always going to come to class. They're never going to ask for a turn. They're never going to smell funny unless you forget to wash them or wipe them down. You know, they never complain. They don't make stupid jokes. They don't correct your technique. You know, they're just kind of the perfect partner. You could throw them 1,000 times, come back the next day and do another 1,000 throws. So these dummies are primarily intended to be thrown, but they can be used on the ground as well in jiu-jitsu specific ways. I do a lot of passing drills with these. I do a lot of movement drills on the top, going knee on belly, doing top spins, going to mount. You can do arm lock drills on them from the mount position. You can take the back, but you know, you can't do a lot of the guard drills that you normally do with some of the other ground-based jiu-jitsu dummies. What I really like to do is I like to do kind of like feet to floor drills where you might throw the dummy a couple of times and then you throw the dummy down and you pass, you do some top spins, then you come back up and you throw it again. And then you can get that up and down, that level changing aspect of like a real match. Whereas you can't really do that with dummies that are designed primarily to just be on the ground. It's not easy to pick up that dummy and then throw it. All right, so let me talk a little bit about recommendations. Obviously, if you watch this video, you can tell I absolutely love these dummies. I find that they are incredibly useful just in terms of working on your takedowns, but also, you know, drilling feet to floor, doing passing drills, all those types of things. They're wonderful. They're really good for jiu-jitsu athletes, especially people who don't have a lot of training partners that are willing to take a lot of throws and fall. I would generally recommend the speed dummies for kids and people who are just learning how to do takedowns and do throws, because you can really focus on your technique and not worry about having to power or muscle throws or muscle the dummy over. And if you have more experience, then maybe the full-size dummies are a better option for you, where you have the technique down already and now you need to work on your explosive power. I would generally, whichever one that you get, you know, whichever weight that you get, I would generally recommend the vinyl over the leather. You're going to save a little bit of money. It's a little bit easier to clean because you can just wipe it. It's still extremely durable. I haven't noticed any appreciable difference in the dummies in terms of their durability between whether or not they have vinyl or they're made of leather. And although there is a tendency for the dummies to slump, I would recommend the legs over the stumps, just because they're a lot more versatile in terms of your ability to work on double legs and high crotches and osotogaris and things like that. So in terms of recommendations, I would recommend these dummies with no hesitation to anyone who's interested in developing their takedown game or their stand-up game. I hope that I've shown in this video that they are wonderful for that purpose, but that they are a lot more versatile. You know, we're here at the Academy, we're constantly coming up with new drills that are jiu-jitsu specific or jiu-jitsu related. So that's it, guys. That's all I've got. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it helps you. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and you'll get a notification the next time I post a video. Thanks a lot, guys. Take care.